Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Shit's about to hit the fan. Welcome to Unsanctioned Thursdays on Wrestling with Freddie.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unsanctioned Thursdays. Yeah. Mr. Jeff Dye, we're going to get right into it today. First of all, how are you, sir?
I'm feeling
Happy
good.
Thursday to you.
Happy Thursday to you. I need some coffee. I'm dragging.
Yeah, I need coffee pretty much injected into my veins all day, every day. My wife ordered us some coffee from this place that we went to in Tuscany, and we still have a ton of it left over because I use it sparingly. But it's the best coffee it's better than Cuban coffee. It's the best coffee I've ever had.
And I don't want to share too much
life.
about your personal life without asking you first. But your wife drinks some weird coffee. Your wife and your daughter. They
drink the frou-frou Starbucks.
Well, no, they had like some oil. They had like an oil, olive oil latte or something like that. They were talking about. You know what I'm talking about? I might be.
They're smart not to tell me about that because I just ridiculed and shamed them forever.
That was very weird.
They might have shared that with you at WrestleMania when we saw you.
And I was going, what are you guys drinking? Anyways,
you know what I put in my coffee?
What?
Not a goddamn thing because it's coffee and it's perfect just the way it is.
I like that style. A real man's coffee.
Right. That's right. And we're going to talk about a real man's wrestling show today. We're talking about AEW, but not just generally. I wouldn't do that to you guys. When AEW started, everyone compared it to WCW, and eventually, hopefully, that's over by now. I certainly don't do it anymore. It's its own living, breathing, evolving creature at this point. But it's reestablished or helped establish new stars in wrestling. And I want to talk about some of them today. We brought them up a ton as sort of one of the main reasons that it got done. And I thought we would start the show with Mr. Chris Jericho and his contribution.
Love him.
When AEW came together, it had a bunch of young wrestlers, but it didn't have a veteran centerpiece that everything could kind of go around and a mainstream wrestler that everyone knew. It had the Kenny Omegas and it had the Young Bucks and it had the Darbys and the MJFs before he was as popular as he is now. But it didn't have that sort of that grizzled veteran who can be a foundation that the pillars stand on, so to speak. And in comes Chris Jericho, who cuts himself a sweet partnership deal. I believe has a piece of the company, which he should. He helped get them their TV deal. And he comes in there and he's basically, since he's got there, has tried to put over every single young wrestler in the company. He is deserving and worthy of respect. Not every story's worked, but not every episode of Law and Order is good. And not every episode of Friends was cool. Every episode of Transformers was pretty dope. But that outside of that show, I can't think of one. And yeah, I think he's somehow still the man, and I think he's worthy to speak about first. When I say Chris Jericho and AEW, what does that make you think, Jeff?
I don't know. I'm just obsessed with Chris Jericho and everything he does. He tried to get me on his podcast, and I was so busy that I wasn't able to make it work out. How dumb am I?
I've done it. It's super fun, dude. You got to contact him again and tell him you want to go on.
I would love to.
If I ever talk about whatever you want to talk about.
When I was a kid, that I would be gone. Oh man, I'm too busy. I'm blowing off Chris Jericho. I never would have dreamt that in a billion years. But now
it just means you're successful, buddy. God, Stop telling good jokes, and you'll have plenty of time.
Yeah, I love him. I think everything he does is amazing. I think I wish he got more love. I know we've talked about that. I use the word underrated too much.
It's weird to say that with Chris Jericho,
because he's gotten I don't think every championship, everything. But I just feel like I wish he was more revered. I love him.
Yeah. Well, shout out to you, Chris Jericho, and have Jeff back on your podcast. He's sorry. He's actually weeping right now. Tears of sorrow and regret. All right. We talk about him a lot. To me, he's Jack Nicholson in the movie Wolf, which is a werewolf movie. And that is Mr. Jon Moxley, who went from Dean Ambrose, who was a clean-shaven, kind of crazy-looking dude, to this evolved, hardcore, badass death match, whether you like it or not. I certainly don't want to meet him in person, not because I think he's a jerk. He just frightens me terribly. And I'm talking about Mr. Jon Moxley. If Renee Paquette marries you, you can't be a bad guy because she's a take no crap Canadian chick. Super cool. I know her. She's awesome. And if she's going to put up with you, you got to be a good dude. But when he gets in the ring, he is the meanest son of a bitch in the world, man.
It's scary. When he came in that ring with the scissors
and a fork, he's stabbing people with forks.
It just looked like it looked too real. It looked kind of scary. I was just going, what is happening? They're all like running away from him like he's it felt like some guy was loose in the streets. Shout out to him because I am a bandwagon Jon Moxley guy. I didn't like him when he was Dean Ambrose. The only thing I ever liked that he did, everyone else hated, and he only did it for like a week where he wore like the gas mask and the big Bane jacket. It was like he was like a knockoff crappy Bane. I actually liked that, but it only lasted for like a week before they released him. And then I was like, wait, so why is everyone so excited to see this guy they hated on Monday? And then he comes to AEW and everyone's cheering for him like he's the greatest. All he did is just change his name back to Jon Moxley, but it worked because they're right. I was wrong. He's awesome. He's really, really good. He's such an indies guy. And, you know, that's what AEW is, the indies wet dream. So Jon Moxley is a perfect fit for it. And since then, I'm a huge Moxley guy now. But I got to admit, I was a bandwagon Moxley guy.
I have a buddy who once he said this, I could never unsee it. He said, Jon Moxley is the most badass looking guy in professional wrestling. But when he was Dean Ambrose, he looked like Corey Feldman if all he made were good life decisions.
Oh, that is so true.
And when I saw his face and his hair and all that, I was like, oh my God, if Corey Feldman worked out and was like eating, juices and lean meats and
not losing his
healthy
mind.
vegetables, he would be totally this Jack Dean Ambrose
That
guy.
is funny. Talk about a guy that's insane.
Dude, side quest, he has this like secondary, like underground club rock and roll career. Have you seen these clips on Instagram?
You talking about Corey Feldman?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I know. He thinks he's Hugh Hefner mixed with Michael Jackson. He's doing all these terrible Michael Jackson moves. And then he's like,
yes, it makes me so uncomfortable watching him, Jeff.
Yeah.
Is that what cringed me? It makes me so uncomfortable. Like, because I loved Corey Feldman, man. Like,
great actor.
Loved when I was a kid, like Lost Boys, License to Drive,
Goonies.
Dream a Little Dream,
The
Goonies
Burbs.
for life, man. He was great in that movie, sucked, but he was great in The Burbs. And when I watch him do this, like, I want him to do well. I want him to shine, and it's tough, dude. It's
when
tough.
also we're all aware that like mental illness is a thing, we should treat it. We should be nice to people that we shouldn't exploit it. It seems like he's genuinely having a mental breakdown and everyone's just like kind of like cringe watching it. They bring him back on the Today Show every week for a while. They were going, let's bring this back. That's got a ton of views. And the reason it got a ton of views.
Oh, no, they did?
Because everyone was sharing it and mocking him and making fun of him. And then he kind of spun it as like, because he's so full of love, this guy. He's like, I just love everyone. And he's doing all this thing. Then the people go, oh, we're supporting you. We love you.
Give him some extra love, yeah.
And he's doing it. And he's got these girls that wear like lingerie and like live at his house.
Hey, well, wait a minute. There's nothing wrong with that. That part doesn't make me uncomfortable.
But he's got
at
like
all.
20 of them, like a harem. And he thinks that he's like Hugh Hefner. He's like, I met a bunch of other girls that don't have money and have mental problems like me. So I'll let them live here. And they pretend to put up with my bad singing. It's all kind of gross.
I did not know about any of this secondary part.
He calls them like Corey's Angels or something like that. It's really gross.
You're damn right he does. God bless you, Corey Feldman. If you're hurting, I wish you peace. An honorable mention, not even honorable, like it simply has to be mentioned, is Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson or the American Dragon or the Dragon from America or whatever other name you want to call him, the leader of the Yes movement. If he would have left WWE sooner, I feel like he would be the biggest star in AEW today. And I think the only reason why he doesn't have the belt around his waist is because of the damn injuries that you get when you get older and when you've taken the amount of road work beating that the WWE puts you through. working over 300 days a year, taking bumps over 300 days a year, multiple times in that ring. But I do think that if his body was the body he had when he first got to WWE, he would be AEW's cornerstone and would be having these epic matches with MJF back and forth for, year after year, like Randy Orton and John Cena back in the day. I hate that his arm's broken, but I love that he still finished the match he broke it in because he's an absolute stud. But yeah, that's one that I think has to be mentioned because when he left, it was a big deal because everyone knew he left because he loves to wrestle and AEW was going to let him. So those are my thoughts on Brian. What about you, sir?
I love him. Washington boy like myself. He's got all the things that I like. He's got grit. He's not the biggest guy, so you could, there I'm being a hypocrite a little bit, but I just like the way he works.
But he wrestles like a small guy, the way like he makes it look real. Like he doesn't ever dominate a big guy. He has to chop him down.
He fits perfectly with AEW, in my opinion. Remember when we were talking about how, who would benefit the most by going to WWE or from AEW going to WWE? I think this is one of those guys, he fits perfectly with AEW. It's kind of like this glorified indie scene that's like on the main stage, and I think he fits in perfect with it. Like he's got the look, the size, the grit, all the things that perfectly AEW, is. But I really like him a lot. I think he's a stud.
The grit is what you said that I keyed in on the most. That's what he has over everyone else. The grit.
Yeah, I wish he would stop doing the chops.
Danielson.
He's taking the chops of a wrestler that's been around for 200 years. He's always breaking open his chest.
Looks like hamburger helper all over his chest, dude. It's so hardcore, man.
He's going to have a chest like Chris Jericho or Kofi Kingston soon. He will have that chest thing that they all get.
That's our time, so I wish all of you peace, too, on behalf of Jeff Dye, Freddie Prinze Jr., this was Unsanctioned Thursdays. Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been a production of iHeart's My Cultura Podcast Network. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.